Look, music and dance and storytelling are integral to everyday life. Music is used as a way of actually handing down all kinds of messages, community messages, life lessons.
African music permeates the many diverse cultures across the continent. Its traditions stretch back for centuries.
In West Africa, they have something that's called the griot or the jali or the jelly, and it's essentially a person that is a custodian of the tradition, of the culture, and they're a musician. Their responsibility, their job, their caste is actually to spread the heritage and the messages of their ethnic groups. So they do that through their songs. When they're playing the music, they sing. They'll sing proverbs. They'll sing messages, life lessons. So in that way, storytelling is actually handed down through music. The same applies to the dances as well.
Ceremonies and events mark significant occasions in all cultures. Across Africa, music has always played a role in ceremonies that mark major stages of life.
The full cycle of life is encapsulated by music. And at every key junction in life, birth, baptism, coming of age, circumcision, weddings and funerals, all of these things are marked with very significant musical experiences. You know, you can't roll out a circumcision rhythm when someone's getting married. You can't roll out a baptism rhythm when someone has just passed away. So the significance of the music and the dances that accompany those rhythms is really important.
For traditional Africans, life is hard and is simply about survival. Music is entrenched in everything.
When the rain comes, when the harvest comes, there is ceremony. And as I've discussed, when there is ceremony, there is music. So you find that at these harvest festivals are really significant moments when they pull the yam out of the ground, you know, the root plants, the cassava. When they pull it out of the ground, they have these really significant festivals, and the dancers in the community wear these big masks, huge, beautifully ornate masks. They put them on their heads and they dance these traditional dances.
All over Africa, music is intrinsic to religious and spiritual beliefs. Animism and other traditional beliefs have been a part of life for thousands of years, particularly in villages and areas away from major population centres. Other religions, predominantly Islam and Christianity over a number of centuries, have influenced cultural and music traditions all over the continent.
Music and religious beliefs are, inextricably intertwined. I mean, they go hand in hand. Certainly, animist belief, which is the pre-Islam and Christianity movement since the missionaries came in to parts of Africa. The animist belief is still strong, very strong in certain countries, less strong in others. The rhythms that are associated and the music that's associated with the traditional animist belief are still played. And they call them fetish rhythms. The old fetish rhythms are ancient rhythms that really come from thousands of years ago and have their roots embedded in paying homage to spirits, to gods. You know, when I say gods, I mean water gods, I mean air gods, I mean animal gods.
Little in the way of traditional African music and musicianship has been written down over the years. Musical traditions are passed from one generation to another.
The traditions of music get passed through the African societies, just like, I suppose, in Western culture, how certain trades are passed down through generations. You know, you might hear a bloke say, look, my father is a bricklayer, his father was a bricklayer. Well, the same thing happens in West Africa. The griot that I talked of earlier, the cultural custodians, it's all about bloodline and lineage. So they pass down their tradition through their subsequent generations.
Different styles of African music highlight different instruments. Drums and other percussive instruments play a big part in creating rhythms. The range and diversity is huge.
The Ewe people, they have an array of drums that are called a family of drums, from the mother, who's a short, stumpy drum that's pregnant, to the father, who's a bit taller and leaner, to the little kid drums. The Akans have their own drums as well. So all these different ethnic groups have their different array of drums, and they're all played slightly differently, and they're all have their very specific rhythms that go with those particular drums.
West African music in particular is heavily percussive. An incredible diversity of drums and other percussion instruments creates complex rhythms.
The Senegalese also, they have a very strong tradition in sabar drumming, which is a stick and hand technique. They also play talking drum, in particular a tama, and they also play the djembe.
The djembe is one of the best known African drums. It looks a bit like an oversized goblet and is made by stretching goat skin over a carved, hollow trunk.
The Francophone countries, as opposed to the British colonised countries, so the French colonised countries are the ones that sort of have led the djembe culture. You know, you're talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Guinea. These countries have been the ones that have put the djembe on the map.
In West Africa and other parts of the continent, vocal music is prominent and is characterised by beautiful harmonies.
Traditional West African polyrhythmic percussive-based music, which also has a lot of vocal harmony as well. That's something that's very strong in countries like Ghana. Vocal harmonies, I suppose, are also very strong in places like South Africa, yeah, where cappella music is obviously one of the dominating musical forms there. The South Africans, you know, they tour around the world. There's great, huge choirs, and they're very much renowned for that.
Stringed instruments have been played in Africa for many centuries. They are still popular today in contemporary African music. Over the past couple of centuries, a greater diversity of stringed and other instruments have been adopted from Western cultures.
And, you know, guitars are a huge part of West African music these days, and they've, you know, obviously Western music has had a big influence in bringing over their instrumentation to Africa, and horns, a big part of the landscape in African music these days. You know, in Ethiopia in the east, beautiful horns played. Right through Africa, there's a strong culture in horn playing, and that has been brought there with the missionaries as well. The missionaries, obviously, you know, the gospel music and the marching bands, you know, from the British, they brought that influence in, and that's filtered through into contemporary African music as well.
Some Western instruments are actually derived from traditional African instruments.
When you look at the instrumentation, if you go right back to the inception of jazz and blues in you know, southern parts of America, and you see the banjo and where it came from, I mean, it's a direct descendant of a Gambian lute.
Other instruments used in African music include the balafon, which is similar to a xylophone, thumb piano, flute, and reed pipes.
I think diversity is the key word when it comes to music, traditional African music and non-traditional African music. Certainly, you know, depending on which country you're in, you'll get a very different kind of music. The west of Africa is very different to the south, very different to the east and the central parts of Africa as well.
Many different styles of African music are characterized by distinctive rhythms created by a prominence of drums and percussion. African rhythms are structured differently than much of the music we may be more familiar with.
You know, the nature of circular time, not having to be embedded by the 1, the 2 and the 3 and the 4. We all go off to a concert, you know, we've been brought up on a diet of 4-4-4. You know, we're all very much embedded on the downbeat. Well, in West Africa, they have this beautiful sort of understanding of music being very circular and the offbeat being as dominant as the downbeat. And so they move to a different pulse than us, and it's a more sophisticated appreciation of time.
Some Western music has drawn on the influence of African rhythms in particular.
Traditional African music has influenced jazz and blues heavily. I mean, the roots of jazz and blues have come through West Africa in particular with the slave trade. Over 1 million slaves left Africa, and that African diaspora which landed in the Americas and Latin America essentially provided the roots of jazz and blues.
Sometime I wonder why good fortune always pass me by.
Certain characteristic vocal styles are notable in African music, including a cappella, which is unaccompanied vocals. Vocals accompanied by music are also common. Both styles are often presented as solos, duets, or choruses. Songs are typically either strophic, that is split up into verses, or are sung in call and response form. This is where a person leading the singing will sing a line, or the call, and a chorus delivers a response. The response generally remains the same throughout a song, while the vocals sung by the soloist leader may be improvised. Glissandos, or vocal slides, yodels, whistles, slurs and sloops are other characteristics of African vocal music. Over the past 5 or 6 decades, a range of hybrid musical styles have come from Africa. They reflect both African traditional music and the influence of other cultures.
All these sort of hybrid styles you get coming out of West Africa. Fela Kuti in the 70s in Nigeria, his Afrobeat movement was essentially this wonderful hybrid of traditional rhythm and jazz. Today in Ghana we have these styles like hip life, which are a hybrid of hip hop and high life. Now, high life's another form of traditional music that was morphed in the 70s as well in Ghana. So all the way along the line, you see these traditional beds getting sort of morphed with these new styles that have come from other parts of the world. And are spawning new styles of music.
African music continues to evolve. While contemporary musicians might make use of instruments and technology unheard of in previous generations, the inherent love of music and the dominant part it plays in all aspects of life will remain for generations to come.
Now, as we all know, in this day and age, the world is becoming a smaller place, isn't it, with technology, and the Africans, just their innate feel for music. They're always looking to, especially the new generations, they're always looking to put their own spice on tradition.